You're listening to the Nature's Image Farm podcast. I'm your host, Greg Burns, and we're talking bees, homesteading, and the old-time ways. This episode is brought to you by EnduraHive wax-dipped equipment. The days of painting bee boxes are over. Our unique wax-dip process expels water from the wood, replaces and impregnates it with our proprietary blend of microcrystalline wax, offering superior weather protection inside and out, without the mess or expense of paint. No paint, no rot, no hassle. EnduraHive, built to endure. For more information, check them out at naturesimagefarm.com. Now, on to the show. Well, hi guys, welcome back to another Stream Team Beekeeping Chat. I'm Greg Burns here at Nature's Image Farm, and we're joined by our pals Bruce Jenny at Bruce's Bees and Brian Coper from Castle Hives. Fellas, thanks for joining tonight. How's things going in your neck of the woods? Oh, come on. Okay, guys, wait. Rock, paper, scissors. Let's see who goes first.
Whatever. Go ahead, Brian.
Oh, go ahead, Bruce. Go ahead, Brian. How's things down in Dothan, Alabama?
Man, right now we're in full bloom with the privet pretty much. The bees are busy, they're happy. Just it's just one of those beautiful springs so far down here. So it's just busy, fun. The bees are calm. Everything's going good right now. At least last time I was in them, they looked really good. So
Brian, you've got storms rolling through your neck of the woods there. I think Bruce might have dodged those tonight, but Bruce, you had storms going through not too long ago, didn't you?
Yeah, they luckily, I don't think anything major touched down. There was some, like they were, of course, whenever they see rotation, the news interrupts everything, but there was some rotation. I don't think it quite got to the ground. It was like, I think 10 miles away. So it scooted north of us. Yeah, pretty interesting out here. So, but I knew I knew we were close just because it's raining like crazy and the wind's going, and then the rain stopped and I'm looking outside like, what the heck is going on? So we were in like that buffer zone where there's like no rain, so, but nothing here. Yeah, Portage County has damage. Yeah, John. Yeah, they've got to, and it went right up by Mosquito Lake and that. So by the Trumbull County Beekeepers. So,
where's it headed next? Let's for all the folks who might be listening. I've got to give a special shout out to all the folks who are in our general Ohio area. Seems like now every storm that comes through, my phone blows up with folks just saying, storm incoming or inbound storm.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate you guys doing that, because sometimes when you're outside, you can feel everything change, you can hear things change. But the way some of these storms are kind of popping up and moving through, they're happening so quick.
Yeah.
So I'm going to thank everyone who gives us the heads up there. Let's take a quick look at the radar here and see who's next.
I think it fizzled out though, because National Weather Service, they didn't extend. Like, we had a tornado warning in my area until 7:30.
Okay.
And then they weren't moving it and they weren't updating it. They said that it was pretty much just, I don't think the system had enough energy to do anything. So
I'm looking at the radar, and looks like it's all the red and severe is kind of fading out. Looks like it's if you're in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Morgantown, West Virginia area, you're probably about to get a little rain tonight. The skies were green. The rain started to just have a little bit of a pelting nature to it. So it seemed like it could have gone either way there. So thankfully, not too big a deal. One of the best things I think that we've done. We'll talk a lot more about it as the season unfolds, but we just before the last series of really heavy storms and tornadoes, we got all the nukes into 10-frame equipment, got them on pallets, got them on the ground here at the farm, and so now the only colonies that we have on hive stands are here in the learning yard. And Brian just visited us here to pick up a package and dropped off some really nice hive stands, 2 packages, and dropped us off hive stands here that I think are going to make a big difference on how we can kind of all gather around the colonies here at the learning yard. But we can also anchor these so we don't really have to worry about those ones flying off. So with exception to the colonies here at the learning yard, everything else that we have are on 4-way pallets or 6-ways or skids of some sort, and so on the ridge it really makes a big difference here where we're at. So we want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. Hopefully you and your bees are safe and you're weathering the storm with no big deal, but it's that time of year, guys. Swarms, if you're down where Bruce is at, you've already gone through this. Here in Ohio, where we're at, the first really flush of swarms seem to be coming in, and I think it'd be fun to talk about that tonight, because what I think we can follow temperature, we can also follow what was in bloom when that happened, and I think that'll be a fun talk. What I'd like to do tonight is throughout the night we're going to have some check-ins, kind of a swarm report, and what we would like you to do is in capitals. If you have had swarms tonight, or not tonight, if you have had swarms recently, let us know in the comments, all capital letters, put the city, state, and the date that you saw or heard of the first swarms in your area. It'd be a lot of fun to kind of track this throughout the entire United States. And so we just experienced our very first swarm. We'll talk more about that here tonight, but swarms is the topic tonight. We'll also get in to your questions. So leave your questions in capitals, and then a little swarm report across the country. If you'd like to chime in there, put your city, your state, and then the date that swarms first appeared in your area. It could be kind of fun to track that and kind of see what's going on. The first one, here we go. Castle Hives, Girard, Ohio, 414. Brian, tell us about that swarm.
So I just had just did an interview last week, and who I was interviewing, I was interviewing Randy Oliver.
Oh, that's cool.
And when we're chatting, it was brought up that very often, the plan that you have, you might as well not even make a plan. Just throw it out and just walk out into your apiary and more or less let the bees tell you what you need to do. And I go, Saturday after I had got those packages from you, go over to my mom's then on Sunday, and I figure, this will be a quick thing, dump them in and do a couple spot checks real quick. And I walked up and said hello to my mom, chatted for a second, and walked down into the apiary. And before I even got out of the building to step down into that fenced area where all my colonies are, I heard the sound. And I could look, in the fenced area, and I just seen them boiling out. And I thought, you got to be kidding me. And they flew out about 75 feet, the pine trees that are out front there, and landed 35 to 45 or 40 feet up. I tried throwing, my mom has a wood pile down there, and me being the idiot that I am, I'm throwing logs up there trying to knock them down. And I ended up had one bee come down and tag me in the ear. Didn't quite get me, but just boom, because I don't think,
sure? I thought swarms were always gentle and calm, and you never have to wear anything in them. Are you sure? I don't think
they liked me chucking logs at them. And there was nothing I could do. I mean, the ground here was so wet that when I was walking down through my mom's yard, literally you heard the like squishing sound. There was so much water. And, my mom was like, get a ladder. And I'm like, ain't no way, I wasn't about to mess with them. And I went down then and was getting my camera and stuff ready, getting stuff set out to do the packages. And within 20 or so minutes, maybe 30 minutes, I heard the sound again, and they all took off and went somewhere into the woods that are, that's behind her place. So they're probably in a tree, somewhere in the acres behind her. So
wow.
We'll figure. And the interesting thing, though, and I need to check with them, it was the colony that I had the BDAR on from the Eclipse, that broodminder sensor, and I hadn't taken it off yet. So I'm just curious what that would show. I'd like to see what the data is as far as like regular traffic, and then when that massive of a swarm took off, what that data shows, because the outbound traffic would have just been through the roof. So what can you do, though?
Swarms are the kind of thing that happens, and there's this like almost a fight or flight thing that happens when you're right in the middle of it, or if you had kind of see it. Bruce, how many swarms have you dealt with this year?
I think I've physically caught 1, 2, 4 or 5, but I've had a couple more that have moved into boxes that I usually will have a box or two sitting around, at least some of my bee yards, and they just end up with swarms in them sometimes they don't. So I've probably caught at least 2 or 3 that way. I just had one yesterday I caught, and Brian, I don't know if you can, I sent you a picture some from Brian Lee, and then that he caught in swarm traps yesterday, and then one I caught yesterday actually on the bottom of his satellite dish, and that was a interesting endeavor. The queen, how it's got the bracket on the back, and there's a space there. I'm convinced now that the queen was in that bracket because I kept pulling bees off, and I couldn't get to her. So finally, and we may want to talk. I don't know if we're going to talk about strategies for catching swarms here in a little bit. Some of them are more difficult than others. Most of the ones I've caught this year, I caught one that I just kind of held some frames up to it. They ran on the frame, stuck them in the box, and I ended up catching them that way. Caught a couple that way. Some that were hanging out on the bottom of just on a little tree down on the ground. I set the box right next to them, and they just ran right in. And then that darn thing. And then one I used a bucket up in a tree, and then the one yesterday, they just were so stubborn. They did not want to go in the box, and I finally did catch the queen, and I'll show you kind of, it's an interesting situation here. Yeah, that's the swarm I caught yesterday on the back of a satellite dish, probably about the size of a volleyball. It wasn't huge, but it was a nice swarm for this area. But I ended up catching the queen. I'm going to do a video on it. I think I got some pretty good footage of it. Didn't have my fancy mic or anything, but I think the footage will be pretty cool. But I found the queen. That's the only way I got him in the box. I think she was hiding it behind that bracket underneath there. Like there's a space, and I was grabbing them with my hand, trying to brush them out. That's Brian Lee. Brian caught those swarms. There's one. I think they're the same swarm, just from different angles. That's a swarm trap he has. So, hey, Brian, put in the comments, is that at your house? I see your house up in Birmingham, I think. I see the house in the background. So, wow. He caught that swarm up there on a tree. But anyway, I put the queen in a little, just a regular standard queen cage. I didn't have a clip. I didn't use a clip. I used a regular standard plastic cage here, and had her in the hive. All the bees eventually moved in, and here's the cage. I'm not sure how well you can see this, but by this afternoon, I called them yesterday evening. By this afternoon, they had sealed this thing up. The queen was in it. I had it laying on the bottom in there, and I only have one frame in there. That's all I have with me. But if you can see, they waxed that thing up. They sealed all the openings.
Wow. And
then on the back side that was down, she could get some air, but it wouldn't have been much longer. If they could have gotten under there, we would have sealed the whole thing up. So I'm glad I checked them today and got her released in there. But anyway, it's amazing. They've already started building wax. All I had was a frame that had a tiny bit of wax drawn out on it. That's all I had with me. And today they've already started putting some white wax in there and starting to draw that frame out. And then I added 5 more frames today. I need to get one more in there. But, swarms are highly motivated. It's almost miraculous what they can do. We put some food on them this morning, just some sugar water on them. before work. My wife actually put it out there for me. It's the Apime hive, which, on a little bit of a tangent here, the easiest, I think, box to catch a swarm in, if you're going to just catch a bee box, is the darn Apimes. They are so easy just to get them to go in there, and then you can just close them up, seal them up, and take them. And, you don't have to worry about it. It's just really easy. It works really well. So I kind of have gotten to the point where I've got 3 7-frame Apime colonies, or Apime hives. And I'm trying to get to the point where I keep one in my truck all the time during swarm season, because, man, they're just so easy to catch swarms in because they seal up so nice. But anyway, that's what I did. So, but I think I've caught a total of, like I say, 2 or 3 just in random hives sitting around that I set up as swarm traps. And then I think I've actually physically caught 5, if I'm not mistaken. Possibly 6, but 5 just around the bee yards. Or that one yesterday was actually a swarm. I've had 2 swarm calls. I think I've caught 3, maybe 4 actually in the bee yards where I just caught them. And I've had a couple that were just too high. I couldn't get to them. One of them still an open air colony. The very first one of the season is still up there in a tree. Last time I was in Slocum, about 30 feet up. They're still hanging out up there. I guess that's an open air colony. So it's a fun time of year to be a beekeeper right now. It can be frustrating if you worry about your bees swarming. Sometimes they just swarm. I can't help it. I mean, I try. But you got to just realize it's part of the natural sequence of things. You do all you can, and then hope they stay in the box. And if they swarm, just got a pretty darn good chance of having a nice new little queen in there that they decide to make themselves. So in the long run, whether or not you catch the swarm, odds are you've got a new queen that's going to be motivated, and they're going to just rock and roll and keep on going.
Bruce, when was the last swarm you caught?
Yesterday afternoon. That's when I caught this.
So you're still in the thick of. Oh, that's right. Yeah. So we're
still catching them. Yeah, typically this year has been real swarmy. I think a real swarmy season. I think a lot of people are having issues, and I've got several colonies I've gone through that I see those swarm cells that have emerged. I know they've swarmed, and there's a queen in there, maybe not mated yet, but I've had a few I go through, and you just see those cells, and you're like, well, I guess I missed that one, but you just hope they're making a new queen, and most of the time they are. But typically around here, we start seeing our swarms around the first week in March, and by the end of March through April, it's just gangbusters with swarms typically, and then it begins to slow down a little bit in May, and by the time you get into June, July, there's very few. So our swarm season, but this year I think the first one I saw, I can't remember the date, but it was early to mid-February. Every once in a while you'll see one in February, and that one that's up in that open air colony, I think it was probably early to mid-February, maybe late February sometime. So this year it's been a really, so far, knock on some wood here, it's been a fun year, and so far it's looking really good down here. And in an ideal situation with all the nectar and the weather and everything, I think the bees tend to swarm more in the spring because everything is ideal for them to do that. Everything is just setting up for success. That's kind of my opinion. I could be wrong on that, but that's kind of how I feel about it. So
no, I think you're right. That's in most parts of the country. It's interesting. Like you watch the hummingbirds coming north, and you start to get an idea of swarm and bee season. And then you get a couple really heavy, severe storms that kind of throw warm and cold air colliding and rain. And to see how the plants and the trees and everything and the animals react to that's pretty interesting. So we had our first swarm April 14th. And Brian, April 14th, let's see, let me look at the calendar.
I can't.
No, mine was actually, mine was the 16th.
I can't ever remember there being like swarms this far up north in Ohio. I mean, that in a sense, that's the second week of April.
You actually beat me by a couple days, and there was actually somebody who reported on the Facebook group a swarm like last month. So who knows what kind of a freaky occurrence that was. Now, I know we've probably hinted at that before, but I knew a beekeeping couple who had swarms that they caught them in February the year prior, late February, and made a bunch of splits off of that. And then the following year, you know what those bees did? Everything off of that genetic line swarmed early, and they lost an enormous amount of colonies that were swarming like late February, early March, which is just what? That doesn't even make any kind of sense. Why would bees do that? Well, I think there was something going in. I don't even want to get into that. But I'll quickly share our first swarm story, and then we'll kind of move on and share what that looks like kind of across the country. But we had a Connex box being delivered, and the guy dropped off the shipping container, and I'm writing the check, and I'm handing him the check, and at the same time, the kids are saying, "Dad, look, it looks like a bee tornado." And I'm thinking, well, maybe it's just orientation flights they're talking about, because, we're looking out at the learning yard, and there's a lot of orientation flights going on. And it was Lily, 8-year-old Lily, and she said, "Dad, look, it looks like a bee tornado." And then all of a sudden I heard it, and it had that cyclone thing going on. Well, it came out of the colony that is, if you were here for the creator convergence, or you've been out here to the learning yard where the sawmill is set up, there's a cant log there. It's, squared up log that's sitting right there. And there's a colony sitting right on that. Well, those were the rascals that were the very first thing to swarm here, and they were our own colony. And I'm thinking, what in the world? Now, it's one of the few colonies that I hadn't been in. Matter of fact, they hadn't even gotten any pollen patties or anything yet this year. So they're sitting there, they're swarming. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what's going on? And there, if you've been to our place, that soon-to-be Ant Bee Theater area, that's kind of where the learning yard is, that entire underneath of where all those overhead rafters and things are, that entire area was just a giant cloud of bees. And I'm thinking, that has got to be the 16th.
Yesterday.
Yeah, it was the day we went to, so yesterday we went to the Fairfield County Beekeepers Association, one of our favorite bee clubs. Let's see. Let me pull that up here. Now I got to know if it was the 14th or it was the 5th. Let me look here.
When I was down on the 13th, remember there was that one other gentleman that you were out in the learning yard with, and I had walked over right before I was leaving. And remember looking up at that colony sitting up there at all the orientation flights and all that?
Exactly. That's the exact colony. And it was Tuesday. So it was Tuesday the 16th. And it was right about 2:00 in the afternoon. And so here we're talking, gosh, if those were packages of bees, that had to have been
crazy.
12 pounds of bees. It was enormous. It was just, you look at it and your heart broke a little bit, because you felt your wallet just get drained, because that's a lot of bees. That was several splits. So anyways, they group up into this giant ball, right? And they're just they're cruising up over the hill. Brian, you've been to our place. You know where there's the oil pump jack, and then to the right of there, as before the hill drops down into the valley, there is what's the VSH Caucasian hybrid, the Appalachian mite maulers. That little yard of 12 that's right there. They flew right up over those, and they just went up, up, up. And I had Jake watching them, and Jake said, "Dad, they didn't stop. They went all the way to the horizon. They didn't even look back." I was hoping they would stop on something along the way, but they didn't. They actually flew out of that colony. They gathered in the air above it, and they went off as far as you could see. And we're talking like the tree line is a good piece away.
That's a little ways, yeah. Wow.
So anyways, they were, but so we'll talk about that a little bit. So what do you do in that kind of scenario when you're in the middle of it, right, and you're seeing the bees leave? Let's talk about that a little bit, and then we'll check in with some folks across the country, see where their swarms were. But when you first see that swarm gather, like they're getting ready to take off, your first thing is like, oh no, I fail. What a failure. I totally failed. And then it happens, and then they move on, and it's like a storm that moves in. As soon as they're up and active and doing their thing, just about as soon as you're like, okay, then they're just gone. And so before and other times, I've actually been right on the early side of it, and I've seen them swarming out as they're all dumping out to collect. And I've actually gotten in there, and I found the queen, and I was able to cage her or quickly move her, and then find where the virgins were either running or getting ready to hatch, and split things out. I've also put the queen back in there and close up the entrance so they can't go. They settle down in about an hour. Then I split everything out, move the queen, make a split, move her to a new area, knock everything down inside of that colony, only leave one virgin running or one cell, and then move everything and just split everything else out. So one colony that's swarming, it's a forced split if you're lucky enough to catch it, because you can move the queen and a resource colony off into a new spot. And then what I do is split the tar out of whatever is left and only leave the very smallest, leanest split left in that same location. And that's worked great. And sometimes it works to your advantage. Every year I try to do that with queens that I'm actually looking to breed from. I let them get up to that point. Hopefully I'm in there before they're hitting the sky and trying to gather for a swarm. But I like to let them make a bunch of those early queens off of the prime stock, and then use that as seed stock for our genetics, for our small breeding program. But in this situation, Tuesday, these bees are all up in the air, right? So many, I'm thinking there can't be anything left. There can't be anything left in this colony. They've got to be wiped out. And so they go off, and I go through here, and it overwintered in my favorite configuration, which is a story and a half, 110 frame deep, 110 frame medium. Beautiful. And going into the winter time, it was about the perfect size. Okay. But the queen was made the early part of June. Okay. So this was my very first one to leave out of the entire yard. And it was a queen that was made in early June. But here's what's interesting. We say it all the time, Bruce, there are no absolutes in beekeeping, right? You will hear a lot of things printed in books that will say that this fact is gospel truth, and it can in no way, shape, or form ever be contradicted or opposed. Well, typically what we have found when we've gotten just ahead of swarms, we usually have a little bit more time. Most of the genetics that we've worked with, as they've swarmed, there is a virgin running and then virgins hatching within 10 minutes, 20 minutes of a swarm when we've been in there. Now, most times we're able to get, even when we're making splits and before they swarm, you can look at those queen cells and see where they're kind of chewed out at the bottom. They turn really dark and they kind of have that cardboardy, fuzzy, papery tip, like the hours before they get ready to hatch. And the mama queen is still in there, and you have time to now split and move things. Well, in this situation, these bees swarmed with fresh cappings. This is probably the first time in all of there are probably thousands of splits and queens that we've made where a colony has actually left just as they capped the cell. And to me, that's a major problem, because to me, that's a colony that ordinarily every other colony, I would have probably had 3 or 4 more days, and I had the days lined up to go through, make sure everything was supered, check on cells. Everything else is more on a uniform time schedule, if you could call it that. So this one, for me, in my experience, swarmed a little bit earlier than a lot of the other ones did, but the wild card was the freaky warm day. It went from 50 some degrees the day before to 78 in full sun. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes you have those weather events that trigger it. Whether or not, here they come. So you got to keep that in mind when you're into this part of the season. All bets are nearly off when you go from huge swings in temperature. Mm-hmm. Full flush of dandelions everywhere. It's gorgeous. I mean, full flush of dandelions absolutely everywhere. And the autumn olives were just starting to bloom. So you talk about absolutely ideal weather. The apples are in bloom. Everything else before that has already been. The red buds are in bloom. It's like beautiful prime weather for them to do it. So what would you have done in that scenario, Bruce? You've watched them. They've clouded up. They've gone. You look inside the colony. What's going through your mind, Bruce, as you're kind of assessing the situation?
Well, it depends on how much time I have and what I want to do. Most of the time, like this just happened to me. It's kind of crazy. It was not this past weekend, but the weekend before. I was going through some colonies there in Midland City, and while I was going through them, a nice strong colony, just a couple of hives down, a couple of pallets away, swarmed. And I caught the swarm on my 7-frame apple maze, and it was a really nice Down here, the typical swarm, we see some really big ones, some really small ones, but probably I would say the average size in my experience has been about a volleyball size, a little bit bigger. And this is a pretty typical, it's probably between the two sides, about that big or so. And I caught them, and I just kind of, I don't even think I went through the colony. I kind of cracked the lid. I didn't really go through it. It's a good idea, I think, if you can, like you say, Greg, to kind of pull some of those cells. You can use those cells if they haven't emerged yet. You can use those cells to make splits with. You can make a split out of that colony. But lots of times I just kind of leave them alone and I let them do their thing. And the interesting thing is, there are times when I go to a bee yard and I see a swarm hanging in the tree, or when I used to put traps out. I haven't done that a lot, but I have bees in a trap that probably were my bees. Honestly, if they're 15 yards from my colonies, I got bees in there. It's a good chance they're my bees. And so, but I can go through the colonies and sometimes I can't even tell which ones swarmed. They were so strong, if that makes sense. I'm just like, what the heck? I mean, I've lost, 3 or 4 or 5 pounds of bees and I can't even tell. But usually you can tell, either you see the evidence of the queen cells that have emerged. If you go a little bit later, you can see where they've emerged, and even if you don't see eggs yet, there's probably a virgin queen running around there, or you see the virgin queen or queens in there. And so, you can always catch the queens. You can do all kinds of things. I don't have a particular strategy I use. It really depends on the time I have and what I want to do. I've just found that in my experience, it seems like most hives that swarm, they don't skip a whole lot of a beat and they just continue to plow forward. Every once in a while you have one, I guess a bunch of the virgins emerge simultaneously or something, where they'll just swarm and swarm and swarm and swarm. You get those cast swarms that may have multiple queens in and multiple virgin queens in there, and they may throw several of those. If that happens, the colony can literally swarm out, where you just don't have any bees left hardly, and that is obviously going to destroy your honey crop. It's going to possibly destroy the colony, especially if it's a little bit of a later swarm. But I don't always fool with them much. Lots of times I don't have time to go through all the colonies and figure out which one it is. But if I see the colony, sometimes I'll go in there and mess with them, and sometimes I just leave them alone and let them do their thing. I think I ended up just stacking honey boxes on that one that swarmed a couple of weekends ago and just moved on. I had a lot of things to do. Didn't really have the time or the opportunity to really go out and try to make splits. Didn't have the equipment to do that. I wasn't prepared really to do that day. I was away from my home bee yard there. I was away from the bar, a few miles away. And so, I don't have a particular strategy, Greg. I probably should. If I was a better beekeeper, I probably would. But I do different things, and somehow it works. Somehow it works out for me.
Well, I don't think you have to necessarily have a specific strategy for it, but sometimes, you feel like I felt like I was caught by the short hairs. I got a guy here, he's waiting on the check, and the kids are saying this, and I've got, I have no idea what's going on, and so I'm trying to get that taken care of, go over, check it, see what was going on, and then when you go to get into it, you could either just leave it alone completely, or you could dig in and get a picture. I like to dig in and get a picture. We'll talk about that in a minute. But Brian, you're at your own yard, and you just saw a massive cloud that just humbled you because you just lost 5 splits that just left. What do you do next?
So, if with that colony there, I didn't touch it because that was one of the VSH colonies. So for me to go in there and distribute out cells from a colony that I'm already going to take care of, I didn't want to even mess with it because I don't want to spread those genetics.
Right.
So the only thing that I did was I knelt down in the front of the thing. I turned my little queen right dial to swarm, and I walked away from it.
Wait a minute. Are you sure the queen white dial wasn't on swarm to start with? It's kind of like when you're driving down the road and you see like a deer crossing sign, and you're thinking, what knucklehead thought it was a good idea to put a deer crossing sign right here and have all the deer know to just cross right here? I mean, don't you hate when that happens? Is that what you did? Is you put it on swarm ahead of time?
Tell them to do that. I'll say too, in your situation, Greg, I don't. It's kind of fun in a way for me if they swarm and I can catch them right there. But in your case, where they went right over the trees, that is frustrating, especially if it's a colony you really love and you like, and you're like, man, there goes my awesome queen that I love so much. And dang, I wish I would have gotten in here and taken care of issues sooner and prevented that from happening. So, but Brian, it'll be interesting to see if you're willing to just kind of let them do their thing and see if the attitude improves a little bit in that colony with the second generation. If they're mating with the drones from the bees that are around there, maybe it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. Look
at how big that is.
With the bees that are left behind.
It looks like a shotgun attempt there.
Hey Brian, pull up that picture of, if you could.
After you get done with that. Oh yeah, there's no way.
Yeah, it was way up there. I've had a few of those this year.
If I was heartbroken over that one, I think I would have attempted, and maybe I would love for the opportunity to try it. And I think maybe I'll keep one handy. I'd like to try some tanging and see if I can draw one in.
There's another thing
on a box.
I have actually experienced tanging. I've actually seen it work, and I've also seen it where they just ignored me. But I was at a friend's house, and while we were there, the bees started to swarm, and I got out the hive tool and I had something metal. I can't remember exactly what it was. Maybe it was just two hives. I was banging something together, and literally those bees were going up in the air, and they just stopped and landed on a limb just right there, just literally within just a few feet of where they were. It was the craziest thing because they were just swirling around and going up higher and higher, and they were within a catchable distance, and it was very easy to catch them. So I've seen it where it's just so crazy how they almost like they stop and they just land first thing they find. But then again, I've also tried it, and they just, if they're too high up or whatever, it doesn't seem. So if you're pretty close to them, it seems like it may work a little better. But if you catch them while they're already in process, if you catch them kind of after they've already kind of decided where to go, it doesn't always work. I don't know if it always works anyway, but
I should have tried that. The sawmill was right there. There's always land somewhere to wrap gosh. But
that's a good idea. It doesn't hurt. I mean, why not give it a shot?
Here's the one that got away. That's with Brian. Look at that. Oh gosh. Yeah, the queen would be inside of that Connex corner.
Lee sent me that Kodiak.
Oh, he did? Oh my gosh. Wow.
It looks like that was about as fun to catch as the one I have. Yeah, that looks like that's about as fun as the one to catch on the back of the dish. That was.
So let me tell you guys what I did with this one, and then we'll check in with some folks across the country. So this thing is going, and it's going, and like I said, it went to the horizon. It actually went straight east. You know where it went? It headed towards the old farm. What I should go over there to that ridge and see if they landed in one of the bee trees that are left. Actually, I took the bee tree out and we cut it up. So the bee tree is art. That's actually here now. But I know there's a couple hive bodies laying around somewhere there. I ought to see if they ended up there. But here's okay. This is going to sound ridiculous, but that's okay. I've got thick skin and I've got broad shoulders. So here's what I did. Wrote them off. Okay, great. What I like to do in that situation is now we're talking about risk assessment, risk mitigation is the name of the game, or actually loss mitigation. So the colony, boom, fine. There's a queen. There's a bazillion pounds of bees. They're gone. I'm not going to cry about it. Now the mode I go into immediately is, okay, how can I mitigate any further loss? I want to get inside this colony and I want to see what is going on. I want to know, are there virgins running? Are there multiple virgins running? Are there queen cells? Now, sometimes you'll have false swarms, and a lot of them will go out and leave. They'll fly around, and all of a sudden, as fast as they do that, they fly right back into the box because mama didn't go with them. And they're thinking, what are you doing? We were ready for you. Come on, mom. So I've seen that, and I've actually stopped that dead in its tracks before. So in this situation, first thing I'm doing is, okay, that definitely looks like they're not coming back. Let's go inside. Let's see what's left. Guys, I open this box. I wish I had a video. I opened the box and I took a double take. Like Bruce said earlier, did I just see a swarm leave this box? Because this box is boiling over with bees still. How is that even possible? And I'm looking in this box, and I mean, it is a story and a half that is so fat. If I had missed that, I would have opened it up and I would have said, oh my, these rascals need split. All right. So it's a story and a half. The top box is loaded full of brood and honey. Okay, so I'm going through, and there's like 4 or 5 queen cells in that box. No virgin, nobody running around, and they're just a hair irritable. Like they're off. They're just, yeah. It wasn't like when Lisa gown was up and we're full with swarms and it's this and that. It's like they're relaxed. These were just a little edgy, just a little off. And I'm going through, and they're starting to kind of pelt my hands a little bit. And I'm thinking, what are you guys doing? I mean, I get it. You've had a pretty eventful afternoon already, but so I'm going through, right, and smoke is, they're calming down a little bit. I'm going through, and I get into the bottom box, and there's like 4 or 5 more. But what these bees did is they just chimneyed vertically, right in the center of the 10 frame box, right into the medium box above, and then everything on either side was food. So I'm going through, there's no virgins. But what I'm looking for, I'm not looking for the virgin, I'm looking for the evidence of a hatched virgin. I'm looking for a ripe cell that was just emerged, trap door open, or one that was emerged last night or sometime in the recent future. Nothing. All I see is pristine, clean, freshly capped cells. And then here's what cued me in that something was just a hair off. There were open cells that were a day away from being capped. I'm thinking, this timeline is just goofy. What in the world is going on? They're like, I get it. They're out of room. And there was a ton of bees in there. And we had a spike in temperature, right? And I think they were getting so hot. It must be. But here's the thing. There were some little mitigation things already in place. That particular colony, that colony was a solid bottom board. Yeah, so they were getting hot. I'm thinking they were hot, overheated. We had a temperature spike. Had I known that, I could have probably stopped or slowed that down. If I would have just cracked my migratory lid just enough to vent, that would have probably slowed things down just a little bit. Anyways, I'm going through there. I'm finding all these queen cells. The first thing, you start to develop with the more rotations of something, you start to develop muscle memory and habits, good or bad. So my first thought as I'm seeing these queen cells, the old me goes, oh my gosh, all right, here's 9 splits, right? And then I'm quickly thinking, okay, where is some quick equipment? And just, 30, 20 yards away is, 60 gesture boxes with painted, they're all ready to go in case something happens. And I was thinking about going and asking the kids, hey, can you bring me some of those real quick? And as soon as I'm thinking about splitting them, this overwhelming sense goes, nope, not today. Leave them alone. Cut all the cells down. So I went through there and cut every single queen cell down. And why? Because, yeah, they could have just been hot and overheated. However, I don't want any kind of genetic that may be on the early side of swarming at all in my genetic or potential genetic in queens in the future. Before I fully know the whole story, that's what I'm looking at. That was the outliers are the ones that you kind of have to watch out for. When you have outliers that are super, super hygienic or not hygienic at all, or that bees that are falling on their face, or ones that are just uber good, you have to pay attention to those and determine, okay, does that fit into the breeding program or not? If they're super outliers, like, oh my gosh, we're finding no mites in here at all, but they can't get past a nuke-sized box every year, that's an outlier, they're gone. If they do a great job and they're keeping mites down on their own, and they're producing a honey crop, and they overwinter, and they're gentle, and it's like a standout colony, okay, those outliers are worth considering for breeding. In this case, this outlier was the very first one to swarm, and was the very first in my area for me that I had heard had swarmed. I'm thinking, I don't know that I like that. And then going in and finding that they swarmed 5 days premature than when I thought they probably would. I'm thinking, 5 days, I'm always tight on time. That's not going to cut it. So I decided to cut all those cells down, and here's what I did. Knocked all the cells down, gave them no future hope. I went and grabbed a double screen board, and I put a double screen board between the deep and the medium. Just because there were so many bees, I didn't want to just shake them all out. What my goal is, and I hope they'll take a video this week, because it'll be tomorrow where the next step comes in. I put a double screen board in with the entrance in the reverse direction as the entrance on the bottom box. So that box kind of empties out on its own. There was still some open brood up in that top box. There'll be some nurse bees that'll stay there. They'll stay put. If they make a queen cell, great. If the bottom one makes a queen cell, great. Tomorrow, I'm going to go back into both boxes and I'm going to knock down all the queen cells and empty out the rest of the bees that are in that top box and force them down to the bottom box. And guess what tomorrow is? Grafting day. There is no better cell starter, in my opinion, than a colony who already has that swarm tendency right there inside of them. That's what they're going to be really good at doing. So for me, I'll throw at least 45 grafts at them, possibly 90 tomorrow, because they are so fat, they are so thick, they are so juiced up. And one of the beautiful things about swarms is swarms get juiced up on nectar before they go. So we could potentially be looking at a colony who already has their nutrition squared away in advance of me wanting to drop cells in there. Could be one of the best takes of the year. So for me, I'm going to turn the frown upside down. Yeah, I lost a cloud of bees and a queen who was one of our early queens that we grafted last year. Great, they're gone. You know, we're going to spread the love out to somewhere else. But now we're going to turn it into a cell starter machine. And I'm going to get many rotations of queens out of this box. It's good and close. It's right there in the learning yard. It's going to be a fun opportunity to just see how many queens we can get out of that. We will have to freshen it up with some brood and things like that, but why not, right? It's not a loss. It's actually a huge gain in a learning experience. So my goals are, let's keep that genetic out of the mix. I don't like it, but let's play to that tendency and let's graft the tar out of it. Have them make as many cells as we possibly can, and then when they start to run out and we're starting to get lower takes on it, great, we'll leave them one. They'll requeen, they'll go off. Perfect. But what's important to think about is, so now I'm freaking out. I'm thinking, okay, how many more colonies here are getting ready to swarm? Right, that's all I'm thinking about. So I am like busting through colonies quickly, cracking them, looking them underneath. First, you crack the lid. What's the population? Crack the next box. Okay, good. This one, okay, you go through. Everything that had a solstice queen, they're like, okay, here's some fake cups. Drones are prolific, right? But there's no queen cells yet, right? Everything done in similar time frames. So what's something to think about is, in this case, it seems as though the solstice queens who overwintered and they were story and a halves or double deeps, they're not ready to swarm. They're still putting a honey crop on, but they're cruising along at a little different clip. So that's what I did to turn the swarm, turn that frown upside down, and have it actually generate a lot of revenue.
I like it. Smart.
Yeah.
Quick thinking. Bruce, you said, well, I don't necessarily have a plan. That wasn't my plan. But you just start going through the things, doop, 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 and it's sequence. Oh, okay, here's the move, boom. No.
Yeah, part of my situation is that we literally right now we're starting the honey crop, and so I hate to just bust down what's going to be a production colony. But everybody's got their own goals, and I think that's I'll have to keep that in mind in the future if I start trying to do more queens and things, because I think that's a great idea. I think that's what a lot of the queen breeders do, is they look for those hives right when they're primed and ready to swarm, and they convert those into the cell starters and cell builders. And so I like that idea. That's a great idea.
You know why,
hey, Brian? Yeah. Hey, Brian, do you have that picture I sent you with the weird, crazy swarm in the bee yard?
The weird, crazy one?
Yeah, I just sent you one. You'll see it when you see it. It looks weird. Anyway.
Oh, it looks like
I was...
That?
Yeah. Okay, well, that's good enough. If you see that thing, I pulled up in the bee yard. I was backing my truck in. I may have even had my trailer... This has been a few weeks back, 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago, and
is that a bee angel?
I was backing through a big cloud of bees, like what the heck? So I got out of the truck, I looked over to the, over a little ways away from the truck, and there was this weird looking swarm. It was in that shape. Now you can tell in that picture some of the bees are starting to go in the nuke there, but man, it was the funkiest looking swarm, one of the funkiest looking swarms I've seen. And so all I did was I took that Apamay, my awesome swarm catching Apamay 7-frame Apamay hive, and I set them right there beside it. And those jokers, you can see, they're just going right in. They just started going in, and I caught it that way. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I didn't get a video of this I shot some video, but I haven't made a YouTube video out of it yet. But I believe there were some multiple queens in there. Lots of times, and you guys tell me if you find this to be the case, if you see just a weird looking swarm, a weird shape, something like this, or you got like different clusters all around, or they're on the ground, you got like 3 different clusters, many times it's a multiple queen swarm. And I'm pretty sure that one was a multiple queen swarm. So I could have just tried to figure out what to do with the different queens and all this stuff. But what I've started doing is just letting them duke it out and figure it out, because one thing I've noticed too with swarms, and folks can tell me if you've seen this also in the comments here, it seems like the bees really almost choose one queen over all the rest. You know, if you take the queen, like if you got a swarm that has 5 queens in it, and you were to put them in cages and set them like within a couple of feet of each other, you know, close together, some of the queens, like no bees go to them. And other queens, you know, even if it's 5 virgin queens or whatever, which it usually would be multiple virgin queens, or maybe one mated queen and multiple virgin queens, in my experience, like, it's kind of like they choose a favorite. And so my question is, and Greg and Brian may have some thoughts on this, are all those queens even good / quote unquote viable queens, or are the bees picking the one that's going to be the best queen? And it's just really interesting to watch them duke it out, man. When you got 4 queens in a swarm, how on earth do they decide? I'm going to drop a video for the swarm I caught yesterday, and the interesting thing was one of the first things I noticed when I pulled up, and this is just since there's only the 3 of us here on this chat, I can tell you guys, everybody else needs to wait to watch the video, but I'm not going to tell everybody else. Just kidding. If you're in the comments, you get a little sneak peek of what happened. But I looked down, and there's like a little, probably the size of a walnut cluster of bees, just maybe 15, 20 bees laying there on the ground. So just a real small little cluster. I'm like, I bet there's a queen in there. Big clump, you know, up on the back of the satellite dish, probably probably volleyball size plus. And but down on the ground, there's like this little tiny cluster. So what do? I go down there and I start messing with them, and sure enough, they have balled a queen in there, and she's basically dead. I mean, if she was moving at all, it wasn't much. She was on the process of dying out, if not already dead. And so I don't know how they decide. And the bees, when I pulled up to that swarm, I noticed they were kind of, like you said, kind of flighty, kind of agitated a little bit. A lot of bees flying around. And so it seems to me, I'm not sure if they were trying to decide which queen to follow. There were some dead bees on the ground, like they were duking it out, fighting it out a little bit. It's just interesting to me how they figure things out. I don't know how they figure out what to do when they have multiple queens, but that's another thing that, you know, the books don't usually tell you that there can be like multiple queens in a swarm. They usually say the old queen takes half the bees and goes to her swarm, and it's the mated queen. The other bees stay behind, and they make a new queen, and the first one that emerges kills all the other cells. And man, that is, you know, ideally that's what happens, but that absolutely is not 100% of the time by any stretch. If it's not even close. And
no.
So I don't know what you guys think about that, how that works and how they sort it out. But I used to try and separate them out and figure things out. And now I'm just like, look, y'all figure it out. I mean, I don't know which queen you want to choose. I'm not sure how you do this, but I just left that nuke box sitting there by that swarm. By the time I left that evening, I think most of them were in there, but they were still trying to figure it out. And I came back, you know, whenever I came back down there the next time, and the bees were in that box. They were all in there just doing their thing, and they were going to work. And I just took that box and set it up there on a pallet. And as last time I was out there, they were doing great. They're doing well. So you just never know. Swarms are just kind of crazy. It's just kind of a cool thing, but kind of crazy also.
You know what was with that one that I've had so far? I was in that colony like 7 days before, went through it and literally looked at all the frames, you know, just to see if I saw like any signs of them moving towards the direction of wanting to swarm. And like I saw drone brood, I saw some cups. I didn't even find a single charged cup.
Yeah.
And
when they snap it in, man, it can happen fast. It's
that's
crazy.
Why, and it was from a Saturday to, I guess, a Sunday. So, I mean, almost 8 days. But the time timing, like I smashed all the practice cups that I saw. I literally scraped them all. And so they had no, and I mean, I know they could build another little cup like that. But timing wise, that's the thing I was looking at. I'm like, it's only been 8 days. So how are they pumping out a swarm this size? Totally.
Are you saying there's no absolutes, Brian? Are you telling me that these bees aren't reading the same books, where they're waiting for the exact moment in time when the first virgin hatches, and as soon as she comes out, they say, okay, sayonara, and they go off and do their thing?
That's the book they need to read.
Right. That's that's printed in so many places, and you read that and you're just thinking, here is a book written by somebody who maybe has had 1 or 2 hives every year for 2 years and has a PhD in something, and they're writing this book based on what they think they understand about honeybee biology, which never aligns with the actual practicality of beekeeping. How many times? The only time I've ever really found I'll say this: the times where I only find one queen in a swarm is where I've never found the queen in the swarm, but I've cat served the swarm, and once they stick and they're glued to the box and pollen's coming in, and I go in and check, I only find one queen. Well, if there was more than one in there, what do you think happened?
Yeah.
They figured it out.
They somehow figure it out, because I don't know that I've ever seen a swarm that just splits up into 3 different equal sized swarms. Somehow they determine what they want. I cannot remember, maybe you guys have seen these old videos, black and white videos of skep beekeeping over in Europe. Have y'all ever seen those videos where they're
what's black and white?
Where they're hauling the hives, the skep hives, like they got little dogs it's so cool to watch. Like they got the pipes they're using to smoke the bees with, these bee smoking pipes. But it was so interesting to me watching those. I watched those years ago. I need to pull them up again because they're extremely interesting. But they would have like 100, 200 skep hives sitting 2 deep underneath. They had like a little shelter. This is in Europe. It was many, many years ago. And they would sit out there. The beekeeper would sit out there, and he had these like nets. And he would just, during swarm season, he would watch the bees. He'd watch the hives. When they started to run out of the hive, he'd go and he'd attach that big net over the entrance of the hive. The swarm would swarm up into the net, and then he would just take it off. He had it clipped somehow to that entrance, and he would catch what they call those prime swarms, which is what they are, right? With the old mated queens. But then another video, they have cast swarms or secondary swarms, and what they would do with those is, those weren't as predictable, I guess, so they didn't sit out there and wait for those. That apparently was later in the year. But they would go up to the bee yard, and they would see these big, huge swarms hanging in trees all around. They would just let them swarm, and then they would go catch them in buckets, and they would go through those swarms and catch the little virgin queens out of there, and they would do something with the queens. I think they'd make splits with them or something. They'd throw them they throw a bunch of those bees in a skep and then throw a little virgin queen in there, and that's how they start new colonies. And it looked to me, from what I could tell by watching those videos, is when they would sell those prime swarms to people, they would stack them on a truck or something, or on whatever they used, a horse and buggy or whatever, and sell those. But it looked to me like, if I remember right, they were using those cast little virgin queens for their new splits. And so, that's the thing. They just watching those videos, that right there kind of taught me the principle of, hey, there's different kinds of swarms. They're not all the same. Prime swarms are different than secondary or cast swarms, and bees, they just do their thing. And so, I think people that write books, one of the reasons I think that people that write basic backyard beekeeping books is so the beginner beekeeper can get an idea of general principles with bees. Ideal conditions, face the hive southeast, make sure you got a windbreak. Prime swarm is this, swarming means this, eggs, larvae, breed, very basic stuff. And so that'll get you started. I mean, you can kind of have some general principles, but obviously the only way to really learn about bees is to of course you can watch videos or whatever, but to actually get in the bees and watch them and learn to read the bees and what they're doing. And as you gain experience, you see a lot of things you never saw in the book, or in the books, and you just realize that I think books have their place and they're good for that purpose, for basic introduction and to teach basic principles, which there are basic principles that do apply with bees. There are some absolutes. For example, you have to have a queen in the hive for the hive to survive. I mean, things like that are absolutes. The queen lays eggs and so forth. But when it comes to actual bee activity or bee, the science or the art of beekeeping, there are so many nuances and variables, weather, genetics, type of hive body, just so many different things, as everyone knows, that it just can change so much from person to person, and of course individual beekeeping goals. And so it really is just such a fascinating opportunity to share with Mother Nature. It's something pretty darn cool, and to observe it very close.
Type of hive body.
Oh boy, yeah. Brian, what are you doing now?
Can of worms.
He's
the only reason why. Here, hang on. I gotta make sure that.
Is this a copper scap?
Okay. Let me make sure that Chris is watching this. Chris Medeiros. He's got to be watching this.
He was on earlier commenting. So
yeah,
Chris Medeiros, thanks for shooting people our way, looking for queens and bees and stuff. Appreciate you, buddy. Thank you. What in the copper scap made its debut?
What is that? The copper scap?
It's the hex hive. But you see how big this thing is. Online, they were saying like small and whatever. Look at this thing.
That's like 80 pounds in filament.
It's mass, and this is just one layer.
What's the R value on that puppy? 74?
When you go with a thicker infill on this, it's actually the R value is higher than wood.
Right.
So.
Wow.
So it depends on what hive body.
Jason Crook, if you're watching this, your production man is dedicating printers to copper scaps, not queen right dials. I need to have a talk with production here. Well,
look at this.
One of the coolest things, we're going to the moon, folks. Well, one of the funnest things about swarms, if you really want to learn about a swarm and you see one, put a hive body down, put some drawn comb in there, put a sheet underneath of it and shake the swarm out on the sheet and watch what happens.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, you will see multiple queens. Just like Bruce said, you'll see the primary mother queen. There can be virgins that tag right along with her. And just like I have seen it, the swarm scenario when Lisa was up here that we caught is there was a mature, a massive gator tail queen. Of course, she was thinned out. She was long, but she was a mature queen, bald as could be. And there was a gaggle, however big a gaggle is, a bunch of bees around her, right? And then on the same autumn olive in different little segments were just little tiny, one of them might have been a baseball, one might have been a football, one might have been a softball. And there was at least one virgin on each one of those, right? So it's pretty neat that they determine, virgins have a love-hate relationship with virgin queens. Yes, they can be a valuable tool for you, but they're valuable, especially in that 1 to 3 day window. Unless you're inseminating, then of course you need a 10-day, and there's other things that you do. But virgins can be a valuable tool if they're in that window and things are done correctly and they're decently and in order and all these things, right? But what's neat is when the colony is able to detect the difference between these virgins that all hatch within minutes and say, okay, we're betting on this one or we go with that one. What would be really cool is, I don't think we'll ever know, but can you imagine like the hive mind as this is going on and they are prepping for a split, right? They are prepping for, okay, well, sister, it was nice knowing you. Good luck with the rest. Good luck in your last 7 days of life, wherever you swarm and wherever you're going with mom. Hope all goes well. Thank you. See ya. And then they're going through the mindset. I'm imagining this, of course. They pick which one of these new. It's like their aunt just hatched inside of this colony, and one was like a minute older than the other, or this, right? Before they were fighting, before there was no battle royale, right? and they're saying, okay, it's like politics. We're going to go with eeny, meeny, miny, mo, boom, and they go and they stick with that and they go on life or death. It's really cool. I would love to be able to just get a glimpse of understanding of what is going through the colony's mind as they do that, as they make those decisions. Is it like Seeley's honeybee democracy, where this is a predestined thing and you go here, you go there? Is it already laid out ahead of time? Or is it just like it's just really cool things. But anyways, I'll geek out on all the things little dumb things that I think about. But when you spend time in a thinking chair or just watching the bees, you're transported to a whole new world where everything that you know as reality doesn't exist. And so you're trying to understand the why and the how and all these different things that we really can't, other than to be completely enamored at the beauty of God's creation with these bugs in the box. And it's a reminder that if there is so much beauty and purpose and intent with the honeybees, how much more so for us? Just a little thing to think about. Pretty cool. Let's check in here with some folks across the country on when swarms started there, and then we'll finish out with some questions and answers. Before we go on, I want to thank Brian Coper. Thank you for the stream team chat. Appreciate you, buddy. And I want to thank Phil at 33 Mile Bees for becoming a YouTube member, and also want to thank Amy Kobeka for also becoming a YouTube member. We appreciate you guys. All right, we'll start with, I've got favorites, folks that are here in Ohio that I've seen. One of the guys that I really like, Randy Reed here, Trails Inn Farm, says, Greg, I caught 2 more swarms the same day that I sent you the second picture. So Randy had sent me some photos of, let's see, I got to know when that is here. See if I can make sure I've got the right phone here. Let's see. That would have been, well, sorry, Randy, I can't, there's too many texts to sort through that one. I think it was just probably Monday maybe when that happened. So, and I think Randy is just a little bit west of me, I think. So anyways, same week here in Ohio. Brian Lee, Birmingham, Alabama, 416. We've got Amber Ruiz, Norman, Oklahoma, February 28th was the first reported. Wow. Isn't that crazy? That might take the cake. That might be the grand winner.
Yeah, that's wild.
February 28th. Our pals over at Sweet Harlan Honeybees, Harlan, Kentucky, April 10th. Three Boys Bees, Southeast Tennessee, April 10th. So that's about a week ahead of us. Okay, that's interesting. Let's see here. We've got about 20 or 30 more. Our local pal, Dean Gettle, Baltic, Ohio, two local swarms, 415. That's a poppin' week here in Ohio when it goes from 50s to all of a sudden 70s like that on the tail end of all these weather systems. That's pretty interesting. Jessica Fairfax, Montrose, Virginia, April 12th. Mr. Jonathan Bennett, Kabul, Missouri. Look at that. April 15th. I'm seeing a little pattern here, and I'm seeing that the bees are swarming on that storm front that went through. Let's see here. Cottonland Apiary, Darlington, South Carolina, April 2nd, caught 3 swarms. Our pal Keith Spillman, he's had 3. Shacktown, North Carolina, April 2nd, April 15th, April 16th. There's something to these storm systems that run through. Barometric pressure, the cold air colliding, something about that. We were talking about tanging and getting bees, that percussive rhythmic frequency. There's something to pressure and frequency and sound and all these things that are triggering these. I think if anyone is interested in tanging their bees, just think of the Bee Gees, 220 beats per minute. Brian, you want to sing it?
No.
Staying alive. I
can't sing that.
Tanging your bees.
Just like CPR.
Just like it. There it is. Okay, enough of that. David Hunter, Dixon Springs, Tennessee, April 6th. Very Kind Bees, McGaysville, Virginia, March 29th, and 4:15. Interesting.
Really?
Our pal Kenny Bach, Marietta, Ohio, April 1st. He's down there on the river, moved into one of his swarm traps, not from his hives. That's good. Wow, April 1st. Matt Kirkland, Houston, Texas, March 14th. John Lawler, Fairfield County, one of my favorite bee clubs in the state, March 29th. He got contacted by somebody at a swarm. That's early, March 29th. Wow. Oh, cool. Another local. Hey, Laura Mino, Hebron, Ohio. I mean, right next door, probably maybe 15, 20 minutes just west of here. April 15th. About 5 pounds right off the grass of someone's property. What a good find, Laura. Wow. 4:15, guys. So 15 and 14, 15, 16 seems to be a huge swarm time here in the Ohio Valley area. Carol McCarthy, Logsdon, Crawfordville, Indiana, March the 7th. JW, Soapstone Farms, Honeybees, Olney, Illinois, April 8th. Chile 8644, April 9th and 11th. White Marsh, Maryland.
I know we've had other swarms around my area because in the Lordstown, Village of Lordstown has a little Facebook group, and there's one other beekeeper that a couple weeks ago, he put, just information about swarms, and he messaged me and said when he hits his cutoff that he'll let me know. He said usually a lot of people call him. He's an older guy.
Yeah.
So, they all hit him up, and he sent a couple pictures of, I think he's got 4 or 5, something like that in the last week or so.
Oh my gosh.
And he told me, he said, when he hits his cap, he'll let me know. And if I want any of them, so, we'll see. I mean, I don't know about bringing in just any old genetics into my yard, because I want to try and hone that in this year. So,
boy, that's a whole stream team chat right there. Bruce, what are you laughing at?
You see Grammy's comment right there. She prefers when doing CPR.
Oh gosh, another one bites the dust
instead of stay alive.
Dude.
Look right here. This is I went back and pulled up this picture from the original first swarm I caught. I don't know if you can see the date on there. Can y'all see that?
February 2nd.
That was 20. Of course, I don't want to. I mean, we're in the South here, but that was at 2:03 in the afternoon, February. That was the one that was so high. It's an open air colony right now. So
first swarm right there. Looks like Bruce is in the lead.
But I'm not trying to win anything. I just thought I'd say I didn't realize it was that early. I knew it was in February, but I didn't know it was that early. You
realize the grand prize here tonight is a year-long subscription for the Jelly of the Month Club. Bruce, you're in the running. All right, let's see. Let's cruise through these. Russell Amon, March 23rd, Southwest Missouri. Our pal at Flower Street Farm Bees, Lakewood, Colorado, April 10th. Wow, that seems early.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
That's what he says, way earlier than usual.
Wow.
Before this year, 4/29 was his earliest. Wow.
Jeez.
19 days. That's incredible. Big Brian Lee checking in, Tallahassee, Florida, March the 18th. Okay, let's see here. We got Dan Weaver, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, April 17th. A large primary swarm boxed up right before the storm front. Ooh, great detail in that comment there, right before the storm front. And so interesting. I think
there could be something to that. Yeah, there could be something to that, man. When you think about it, it could very well be true.
I bet, and I tell you, from the storms that just ripped through this area here this evening, tomorrow it's going to be 70-some degrees.
I'll be out and about checking everything tomorrow and grafting and pulling from the donor hives, so I'm going to be on full alert. Karen Kress from Bee Amazing Hives from Sewickley, Pennsylvania, April 10th. JB, St. Louis, Missouri, April 10th.
Wow.
First swarm catch, queenless, put a cap cell. Oh, first swarm catch, queenless, put capped cell in or mated queen. Well, I think you could go either way. If you've got some open brood somewhere, you know, what I would do is just give them a sheet of open brood and put some drawn comb on those rascals, because they are worth their weight in gold just in drawn comb. Or if you've got a really beautiful queen that you absolutely love, go rob you a frame of eggs, drop it in the swarm, let them make you 5 or 6 or 7 queens off of the mother queen you love, cut those cells out and make some splits. There's always a way to turn that frown upside down.
I might, you know, if that's queenless, does that mean the queen got killed during the catch, or does that mean that
probably
just didn't see it? And I wonder, you know, if sometimes when you catch a swarm, that it may be a virgin queen that's so small you might not see her. I mean, that's happened to me.
Yep.
Like you say, Greg, I think that's an awesome way for insurance to put you a frame of open brood in there, or, you know, eggs, young larvae, because that's an insurance policy. If you've got a little virgin queen in there, she's going to go ahead and get mated, and that'll give them a head start. And they will absolutely, that'll lock them in. They odds are they will not leave if they've got brood in there. But if for whatever reason the queen did get killed, or it truly was queenless, then it will allow them, like you said, to make some beautiful queen cells and end up with a really nice situation. So I found that's a little trick. Anytime you think you're queenless, man, just, you know, sometimes I just leave them alone for a couple of weeks. But if you're worried about it, it never, ever, ever hurts to put a frame of open brood in there.
Yep.
You know, with some eggs and larvae, because if they got a virgin running around, like I say, even if it's not a swarm colony, but if they got a little virgin running around there, it just gives them some strength. And you can absolutely fix that colony if they are truly queenless. They can absolutely fix themselves, and you can end up with a nice queen. So just for whatever your beekeeping situation is, never hesitate if you've got it available to put some open brood into a questionable colony that you're worried about being queenless.
Absolutely, because if you're ever wondering what is going on with this colony, drop your frame of eggs in there. When I mean eggs, if you've got day-old eggs in there, in that progression, you'll have the right size larva. So if it takes them a day to figure it out, you'll still have a good material for them to work with.
Absolutely.
It'll tell you. And even if you don't do anything with it, even if you just want to find out, are they queenless or not, throw it in there. They'll tell you. Then you can pivot. You can make a move and know, okay, well, you're making cells.
When in doubt, egg it out.
Yep.
Right there it is. T-shirts, coffee cups, tattoos, you name it. When in doubt, egg it out.
Egg it out. Stream team slogan right there.
Love it. That's great,
Brian. You can tell too, like within Greg, 2 or 3 days, you go back and look, and you'll know. You can know then if you're just worried about it. Pull that frame out and look and see if they're developing queen cells. You know, you did the right thing. They're making queens. And if you don't see any, then they're most likely they're going to get that virgin queen that's in there that you didn't see mated, and they'll be fine. So that's just a great insurance strategy if you get worried about being queenless. I have people contact me. They'll message me, email me, whatever. Or, you know, if I'm trying to mentor, help somebody out. You know, I did the same thing when I was a new beekeeper. I think I've told this story before. I would go buy queens from my mentor. I'm queenless. What do I do? He said, Bruce, just wait. He may have told me put a frame of brood in their strategy, but at the time I was a new beekeeper. I may not have had any really that I wanted to donate. But he would just say, Bruce, just wait, give it a week or two, and then think about getting a queen. And almost all the time they've got it figured out. But if in doubt, egg it out, Brian. If in doubt, just
I love that, Brian.
I love it too, man. That's great. Yeah, Brian is.
Maybe that would be like our shirts for this year's convergence.
Don't let John Turpin hear that, though. He's going to take that to a whole other level. John Turpin is the Eggman Cuckoo Cachoo. He's the guy that runs around with eggs, and like I hadn't met him before, and I'm walking around, and here's this guy, right? Big, handsome John Turpin is walking around, and he goes right up to me like we know each other and puts an egg in my shirt pocket. I'm thinking, that's mighty forward of you, but it's an egg, so thank you. I'm like, what? I give it back. And he did it again, and it's John Turpin, the Eggman, Cuckoo Cachoo.
I remember him doing that.
Egg it out.
Yep, he's using the term egged it out. He's using it already, so we got it.
Out.
Yep, he jumped on it.
When in doubt, egg it out.
Great, or Brian, I think you've discovered a new term there. I've never heard that before, but it's going to hit the beekeeping airwaves, man.
We'll have to make a little video of this, little short video.
Yeah, Granny's got that quote too. I mean, I've got a hive tool and a smoker, and I know how to use it. That would be t-shirt worthy too, right there.
There it is.
Awesome.
We can say we knew Brian when before the phrase went viral. He's going to be on the news. Everything. He's going to be running for Congress. When in doubt, egg it out.
That's the title for
check-ins here. We've got our pals Larry and Marianne Sears, Elizabeth, West Virginia, a few swarms around there. Amy Kobeka, thanks again for joining as a member. Woodbridge, Virginia, April 10th. Rob B's Apiary, Columbus, Indiana, 416. I'm seeing a trend. Randy Reed, Trails End Farm. We checked in on that one. That date was April 15th in Heath, Ohio, and he's just 20 miles west here. So Laura and Randy are to the west. And Randy, I want to thank you again for the heads up on the storms. Randy sent me a text before the tornadoes came through and just said, storm with rotation inbound, heads up. So I appreciate that. Let's see. Keith Spielman has a question here, and we'll get to that'll be our first question in here in just a minute. I want to thank Dale, the Wisconsin beekeeper, for that $10 super chat. Guys, what I'd like to do is transition to last maybe 10, 15 minutes of tonight's chat to kind of rapid fire some questions. So if you have questions, if you would, leave them all caps, and then Brian and I, maybe we can get those starred and get them kind of categorized, and we'll kind of we'll go through there, and we can kind of check in on that. In the meantime, as you guys are leaving those comments before, I want to thank everybody we've been so busy. We've already had two huge package runs. I want to thank everyone for visiting with the farm. Brian came out and picked up two. We've had folks traveling from New Jersey. We have folks coming from South Carolina, all over the country, to support Nature's Image Farm, to buy their bees with us. And I can't tell you how much that means. We want to thank you from the bottom of our heart, the entire Burns family. Thank you guys so much. We've had a lot of traction and a lot of interest in our EnduraHive wax dip line of equipment, 5-frame, 8-frame, 10-frame. We're carrying the top-notch, the best bee boxes on the market, made by Premier Bee Products, the Propola hives, the Pure hives. We're wax dipping those. Beautiful, beautiful opportunities. No paint, no rot, no hassle. We're really excited about that. I'm going to play this quick clip, and then we'll get to answering all your questions here. Stream Team Beekeeping Chat. Be right back. Hi, I'm Greg Burns, founder of Nature's Image Farm and EnduraHive wax-dipped equipment. Hey, as large family beekeepers, we saw a major need to do way better in protecting our investment with our beekeeping equipment from the elements for the long haul. So I coupled our practical beekeeping experience with our wood science background to create the EnduraHive wax dip line of beekeeping equipment. Our unique wax dip process expels water from the wood, replaces and impregnates it with our proprietary blend of microcrystalline wax, offering superior weather protection without the mess or expense of paint. Our equipment is protected from the weather inside and out, preventing box rot, fungal growth, and decomposition. That's a huge savings in both time and money. No more reworking tired, worn out boxes year after year. Our wax-dipped equipment is proudly made in the USA. So protect your investment with EnduraHive wax-dipped equipment. No paint, no rot, no hassle. EnduraHive, built to endure. All right, got some great questions in. Let's get to those. If you're interested in Propola or Hive Alive, 10% off Stream Team 10 at nature'simagefarm.com. Bruce, what you got there?
That's a EnduraHive Propola box right there.
Oh, there you go.
Nice. Can you see it? There it is. Anyway, I got bees in it, guys.
That's awesome.
And they're still alive as far as I know, so we're good.
Awesome. Good to go. How's the hive beetle situation going for you, Bruce?
So far I haven't seen hardly any hive beetles. It's the most bizarre thing. I've seen a few, but the overall right now we're just, of course the colonies are big and strong, and honestly most of my colonies right now are kind of out in the sunlight, and the bees are super busy and active, and just hive beetles are pretty opportunistic, and they seem to attack and be more prevalent when the bees are a little bit weaker and the more difficult times of the year. But right now I'm seeing very few hive beetles. I did go up to Ozark a week and a half ago, and there are some really strong, the ones that are left, there are still some strong colonies up there, so there aren't very many left, but the ones that are there are doing pretty well. And it's not a horrible hive beetle situation. I'm just not sure. That was the most bizarre thing, but we don't need to talk about that very long. But overall, hive beetles right now is doing pretty well. I will say I did spread Grubex. I've put it in all my bee yards, around all the colonies, and so maybe that's having an effect. I don't know, but I'm going to apply it again to all the colonies here pretty soon on the ground around the colonies, and I'm going to do that probably at least once, maybe even twice more this year. So I'm in attack mode, man. If I see hive beetles, we're just not going to play that game this year. I'm not going to wait. At least that's what I tell myself now. So we'll see how it goes.
Bruce, I want to thank you for the $20 super chat. Appreciate all your support over all these years. So thanks for that. Let's get to our first question from the one and only Keith Spillman over at Half Tracks and Honeybees. Make sure you check out his YouTube channel, and maybe you'll get a glimpse at Big Bertha. It'll be well worth the watch. And Keith, man, when I'm not running bees up through the Carolinas and I can stop, I'm gonna stop by and see you and see Big Bertha, and would love to maybe go for a ride. So Keith asks, do you guys agree that a good flow shuts down much of the swarm impulse? Bruce, what do you think?
I'm not really sure. Right now we're having a pretty good flow here. The privet has just kicked in the last week and a half, right in this area where I'm at, and I caught a swarm yesterday. So I do think that I'm not sure what shuts the swarm impulse off. I do think that a really good flow does have an impact on that. For example, our swarms are mostly done usually by the end of April here. You do still have a few in May, but the privet, the spring flow is usually kind of a preliminary flow, and the big one is in May when the tallow hits. It's just crazy, and I don't hear of a lot of swarms during that time frame, so it very well may have something to do with it. I'm not sure. I wonder too if possibly, most of these colonies, once they get things established, once that primary queen leaves and they have a new queen and they're happy with her, I kind of wonder if that's what shuts the swarm impulse down as much as anything else, once they decide upon a queen they want to keep, or if they'll just keep swarming out, until the flow starts. I'm not sure what actually stops it, but I do think it does have something to do with it.
Brian, what do you think?
I'm timing. So, and this is just for my area. When I don't think just in my head, I don't think it fully shuts it down, just because early in the season, like right now, things are all starting to pop. And you have literally, like you said, there's the dandelions, and there's so much stuff out there right now. My last check in my colonies, I saw wet nectar. I had a swarm, and we haven't even gotten to all my other colonies yet. Now, whether I'm sure there's multiple factors that play into shutting down that, but I don't think just a flow shuts down that impulse. I don't.
Greg, I got a thought on that. Possibly, early in the season, the bees are utilizing that food to make baby bees to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if when they kind of get the population they need and want, and then the big strong flow comes in, I kind of wonder if they kind of shift, if they go into storage mode, once they've got their growth mode is kind of where it needs to be. I wonder if that has something to do with it. Once they kind of shift over to storage mode and they want to pack it in and those foragers and the bees are just focused on storing it away. I wonder if that has something to do with it as well. If maybe that slows it down. And instead of growth, making new baby bees, exploding, expanding the population, and dividing the hive. Now we got to store and pack this food away. I wonder if that has something to do with it. I really don't know, though.
Yeah, I like that, Bruce. I think that's kind of what I was thinking too. Is right now as the bees that were swarming, what I had seen is frames packed full of wet nectar, and we're not really. I mean, we're in a good flow. We're not in the flow, but we're in a pretty. The dandelions just started get real heavy, and the autumn olive just bloomed really like yesterday, where you can smell it. That real sweet. It's got a certain smell to it. So, I think that could go either way. On colonies that are a little more reserved on brood and they're brooding up on a flow, then I think they stay put. But if they had already built up and they're able to get numbers and build up their brood nest on those earlier, light to medium flows, I almost think the heavy flow maybe helps trigger them, because now everything at home is packed out quick. They gorge and boom, they go. Just a thought. So I think that could go either way. But like you mentioned, I think it's more timing of the brood nest and brood size, I think, is maybe one of the key components. But think about it though, if I was going to pack up half the kids and hit the Oregon Trail, it would be the most ideal time to do it as where I'm traveling, there is abundance on the trip, like natural abundance. So for me, if I was a swarm, and we got to be careful, the magic word, Brian, anthropomorphize, that was almost in a Fred Dunn cadence. You would almost see thumbs up. Oh, look at that. Oh my gosh. Brian, look at that. Wow. Bruce gets nothing.
Still can't.
Bruce gets nothing on that. Anyways, I think maybe they would probably look at Brian has all the. Okay, try it again, Bruce.
Bruce Stowe, because you
had to easy target there. Anyways, I don't know the answer to that, but I can think it could go either way. The hive mind in me says if we're going to leave home, we're going to do it when we've got food in abundance when we get there. Yeah. And once we get there, we've got enough food to kickstart and to draw wax and to do all the things. So I don't know. It could go either way.
Yeah. There's
but if you leave
kind of questions.
But if you leave in the middle of the hot flow, then it might run out by the time you get there. If you think about that journey, if the year's halfway over and you're leaving, by the time you get there, so that's another thought. Maybe they try and get a head start on that flow. They know what's coming, or something in nature gives them that cue. I don't know. That's just my thoughts on it. I think it's a little combination of everything.
Great question, Keith. I like the ones that make you think. Brian, what's going on, Brian? Brian's, what do you got?
I gotta put this up.
I can't see it. Back it up a little bit.
When in doubt, egg it out.
Oh gosh.
Jeez, just like that. Brian leaves t-shirts made before the show's over.
No, that was Lee.
Oh, Lee.
Awesome. Nice. When in doubt, egg it out. I like that.
Speaking of eggs, this next question from N2D Sky. Oh, like end to the sky? Okay, see, I'm getting with it. No queen or eggs. Gave them a proper frame twice about a week apart. Still, no queen cells. Now what? I'm thinking you could have had a virgin running around, number one, or I don't want to be a doom and gloom type, but if you all of a sudden get your hopes up because you start to see eggs, and a lot of them, and then you notice that those cells start to be a little bit more rounded out and a little higher, you'll see them draw the wax out just a little bit funky, like protrusions. You might start to see, maybe we have laying workers and it's nothing but drone brood. Sometimes when those bees get into that scenario inside of that colony where they may not even draw a queen cell because of the laying worker situation that's going on inside of there. I hope that that's not the case. But if you no queen or eggs, you give them a proper frame twice about a week apart. That's a 2-week time period. That's 14 days. if you had a virgin happen at the very beginning of this time frame, if there was a standard accepted timeline, it's right around 10 days that most folks say a queen will get mated. However, I'll be the first one to say that's not a fact, because we actually saw here that it took 5 weeks for a queen to have the whatever circumstance that she needed to get mated. We watched it, we witnessed it here. So,
yep.
Don't count your eggs before they hatch. But if they're not drawing queen cells, that tells me either A, they're not queenless, or B, they already have their future predetermined. So let us know in a week or so. Let us know next week. Comment and let us know what you found this coming week. Great question. I want to thank JB for the $5 super chat. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate that. Next question, Circle T Farm. Question for Bruce. Last video, you said you wait 2 to 4 weeks before extracting and look at the hives to determine where to put the excluder. What are you looking for? What determines where you put the excluder? Bruce?
Okay. It's a great question. I can't remember which video that was. It was either the one I did with Yappy possibly, which, by the way, if you haven't seen that, Yappy did a great job in that video. It's the one that dropped yesterday, or if it's one of my recent, I can't remember which video that was. But the way I do it is, what I found is that, you've heard the term a lot of people have, that queen excluders can also be named honey excluders. And I used to go by that principle, and I got tired of digging through frames when I was trying to harvest and making sure I didn't get brood in with my honey that I was trying to harvest. So I'm trying to, it takes just a pain to do that. So I decided to start trying to use excluders. And I believe it was a guy here in our bee club locally that said, hey, 3 weeks before you harvest honey, at least 3 weeks before you harvest honey, go through and determine which level, where you want to harvest honey above, and slap a queen excluder to make sure all the bees, shake all the bees to make sure the queen's below. But if you see her, that's fine. Or if you shake the bees down, that's fine too. Make sure the queen is below the excluder, and then put the excluder above wherever you want that brood to be. And then the bees, the larvae will hatch. If you got eggs above there, if you got any type of brood, it will emerge. Given 21 days, if they were eggs, then of course it'll be, the bees will emerge by then. And the bees will backfill that with honey. And so I just like to put the honey supers on there, the comb, whether it be comb or foundation, put it on there, whatever I want for my honey supers above the brood chamber. Let the bees move up in there. Let them fill it up. Start filling that up with honey. And then I'll shake the bees down. And so that's what determines it pretty much, is what level I want my brood chamber to go up to, whether it's a deep and a medium, or double deeps. And then I put the queen excluder above that. That's how I determine how much space needs to be below. And then everything above that becomes honey supers. I prefer for there not to be brood in my honey supers. I think most people do. But every once in a while, that queen will get up there and start laying a little bit. One thing you have to be careful of too when you do this technique is, many times they'll put some of that drone brood up in that honey box. Sometimes especially if it's foundation up there, they may try to build some drones up there. And so you need to make sure those drones have a way to get out of there. If you if you stick a queen excluder on there and then you seal everything up and there's no upper entrance or any way for those bees to get out of there, those drones will be trapped. And one of two things will happen. Number one, they may try to get through that excluder and get their heads caught and just end up dying, and a horrible death, and they're trying to get through the excluder. Or number two, they're just trapped in there. So when you take that lid off, if they survive, you got hundreds of drones that come flying out of there. I've had that experience as well. But I always try to leave some sort of an upper entrance where there's a stick in the corner. But what I've started doing in recent years is moving at least one of the boxes forward. Usually it's the top box I'll move forward just enough, maybe a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch on the back. There's like a lip back there, and that does a couple things. It provides an upper entrance if the bees want to use that. It also provides good ventilation. I think the bees will defend that. I don't see a lot of bees usually going in and out of there, but they seem to love that. And if it's a box is stacked like 6 supers high, you might want to do that a couple times, maybe move one box back and then another box above, forward a little bit. That works incredibly well. But that's how I determine that. How many honey supers do I want to stack on there? And then I make sure I do it about 3 weeks ahead of the honey harvest. So all those quick bees will emerge, and hopefully the bees will backfill that with honey up there. It works well. I like the bees to be working up there. If I just slap a queen excluder on there and then a honey super on there, many times the bees are hesitant to go through it. Some bees don't care. Some hives just go right up through there. But some colonies just seem super hesitant. They'll pack honey and get honey bound below sometimes before they go up above. And I like to make sure the bees are up and working. If they are, get them up working and comfortable up there packing honey in, then that queen excluder doesn't slow them down, typically in my experience.
Great answer, Bruce. To kind of piggyback on that, our pal Chris, Drop Tine Farms, Fairfield County beekeeper. Shout out to Chris and the folks there at the Fairfield County Beekeepers Association. Chris says a good flow can plug up a hive and increase the impulse for swarming. That's a great comment, Chris. Absolutely. So whether Bruce was talking about, when to add the excluder, we were just talking about swarming tendency on a swarm or on a honey flow. If they get plugged out, pollen or nectar, and there's no room, those jokers can hit the bricks and one way or the other.
Hey, Gary,
go ahead.
Sorry, Gary has a comment there, and I don't know if this is where he's going with this, but I tend to agree with him. He says I can keep the queen out of my supers without using an excluder, and I would say there are different techniques to do that. I think one is, of course, and Gary, if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, or maybe you could leave a little comment down there as to how you do that. But I think one way people do that is they make sure there's a honey rim around the top of where the brood is. And then typically the queen doesn't go above that honey rim, above the top, that dome. And so if you've got a super of honey on top of there, or if there's a nice dome above the brood, many times that queen won't go up into the honey supers. And, the bees, they'll kind of hit the top and they start backfilling and they're keeping that queen, pushing her down. Another thing that I've seen work is this is kind of what Tim Ives has done. What he used to do is he would say checkerboard supers and not frames. So he would put foundation above the brood and then your comb above that, your drawn comb. And the queen will typically not go above that foundation until they've drawn it out. Then she might. And so that's another way to put a barrier in there to kind of help keep her down below. But she'll start laying in there. And so you got to keep moving that thing up and putting new foundation in there if you want to do that. But Gary, I'm not sure if that's where you're going with that, but that will work typically. I have seen a queen in a honey production hive though on the lid before above the honey. I have seen that happen before, but that's very, very rare. She normally doesn't do that.
A little hot tip there. I have gotten in the habit over the last few years, and I can't break the habit. And then when you don't do it, you're thinking, "Oh, I just made a mistake." Every single colony, especially when I'm working 4 ways, I hope to get more videos out of actually getting in and working the bees this year. The ones that I've suffered through this. Letting perfection be the enemy of good. And so if I'm not able to get the big cameras out, I don't have the lenses and all the mics and someone to help me film it, then I just let myself be too busy with the bee work and then not actually do any of it. But recently I've been trying to just take my iPhone quickly out, grab some quick video just so we can share what's going on. And I hope you guys are finding value in that and hope you're enjoying those. I'm trying to let it go. And compromise where I'm trying to get at least help folks understand where we're coming from, who we are, what we're seeing, and get that part of the journey out and not be so focused on precision and the detail and things like that. It's really hard for me to do that because there's nothing more than I love is to be able to take something and tell a story and add the shots and the transitions and the music and have something to tell a story and have an impact and have meaning and all that and purpose. But it's prevented me from getting basic stuff out. And so you're gonna see a lot more of just the basics, quickly shot. I don't want to say poorly edited because I don't want it to sound like if that's the way that you edit that it's poor. It's going to be raw, nearly uncut. I hope you guys find value in that. If you would, I just released one earlier today, and we're just trying to get caught up on some of these videos. You're going to see we're going to get caught up here real soon, and you're going to see a lot more on what's going on, especially as we kind of follow what happened when I thought it was a good idea to bring in these VSH virgins, open mate them, kind of hybridize those with our Caucasian Carney line. Was that a good idea? Was that a bad idea? What are we looking at? It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be really exciting. And we're going to be sharing a lot more of that as the season unfolds too. So hang in there, stick with us as those videos kind of roll out. But let's get through a couple more questions here. Karen Kress, Greg, things happening early. Nukes running on schedule or planning sooner delivery. Bee Amazing Hives. Dave here. I have an order in from you. Well, Dave from Bee Amazing Hives, thank you for your order. We really appreciate that. As far as nukes go, it's too early to tell. I've actually held myself back a little bit this year. I could have started grafting 3 weeks ago. We've had drones running and a lot of them, but I've actually held myself back, and I'm trying to be a little more. In the past, I have somehow caught myself in this race with myself, and it doesn't necessarily a good thing. Where I was trying to see what's the earliest I can do this, what's the soonest I can do that, what is the, and what I found is I may have gotten a round off of queens, but then weather broke at the wrong time, and it really set me back. So I'm really glad that we've been a little bit more conservative on when we actually started grafting. We could have had several hundred queens at this point. However, with the rain events that we've had and the cold snaps that we've had, I am really glad that I'd listened to that voice on the inside and just held back on that, because now it's full go. So now we are going to really get busy making queens, and the extended forecast looks perfect. So that being said, we are still on track for late May, early June, as long as everything continues to go on track. So is it going to be earlier? I don't think it's going to be any earlier than June 1st. We're kind of scheduling and planning out June 1st. It would be the first pickup for nukes. So Dave, keep an eye out for an email like with all of our customers. We'll be in touch with you as we get a little bit closer. We'll get you updated. And of course, if you bought your bees with us, you will be getting emails real soon with invitations to come out to the learning yard and be a part of this community. And we'll keep you up to date there too. So thank you for that question. There's another question here pertaining to packages or nukes from Catherine. When starting a package, is it good to feed them pollen patties as well as syrup? Brian, you just came down and got a couple packages. How'd your install go? And did you put pollen patties on as well as syrup?
Went very smooth. Yeah, they have the Pro Suite, so they've got the syrup on them. And they've got the, just a small, I don't give them the whole entire pollen patty, but they get about, a 4x4 square of it. I want them to have food right away. It's a brand new colony. I don't want them to have to worry about going out and foraging. And then they were installed, Sunday? And we've had rain 2 days since then. So if that happens and I'm trying to build that colony, they're just going to get delayed. So it's not going to hurt them. So I always do that. It tends to work out really well. But, and then another thing just to keep in mind also, when I install my packages, they always have, and I apologize for Eli there, but they always have drawn comb. So when I install them, they have food, and they're always on drawn comb.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think if great points there. We always recommend folks that you put a pollen patty on with syrup. They've got carbohydrates, they've got protein, especially with the Hive Alive pollen patties. It's got 15% real USA pollen in it. In my opinion, it's the best pollen patty out there. We've trialed, and we'll get into that later. We've trialed a bunch of them at the same time. We'll share those results with you. But we always recommend you put a pollen patty on and syrup. And what I like to do is make sure they're Hive Alive products, because I want the thymol, the macronutrients. I want those things. I'm going to get their guts cleaned up. I want to get them ready to jump. But with a package, you never know what the weather's going to be. So exactly why we recommend folks do that, why we will do it if we're installing packages. Brian did just that. And it's for that reason. If you get rain, if you get cold, whatever reason, the bees are not going to be set back with their nutrition. You want them to be juiced up, happy, well-fed, so they can draw comb and they can jump. They can go now forage, they can draw comb, they can get everything ready at home. And we've just seen a tremendous uptick in overall hive health when they're well-fed and their nutrition is up to snuff. So great question there. We're going to take one more question, but before we do, I want to thank Rob over at La Robbie's for your super chat. Rob says, thanks for all you guys do, Rob. We appreciate all the things that you and Lori and the whole team Pop at La Robbie's do to help keep bees healthy and beekeepers happy. Last question of the night, and from Dale, the Wisconsin beekeeper. Dale asks, I have some old queens this year. When is a good time to requeen? Now, we were just up in Wausau, Wisconsin at Beak Meet 2024. What an awesome time that was. Brian's got a video out on it. Bruce has a video on it. I've got footage to put a video out as well. You can kind of check in and see how much fun we had up there. So hat tip and shout out to all the folks up there in Wisconsin. Bruce, Dale has an old queen or old queens. When is a good time of year to requeen? Bruce, what do you think?
Man, I have the best success in the spring. I know people say post solstice queens, but I think the most, God, it's just hard to, it's hard for me to just kill a perfectly good queen, even if she's old, and just replace her. So I rarely just take a perfectly good queen and replace her. If she starts to fail, if things aren't looking good, if this brood is getting spotty or we're having issues with disease, then I may actually actively kill a queen like that. But personally, I have the best success requeening in the spring. And one thing I do that I think my overall average age of my queens has typically gotten younger over the last few years. I've been more intentional. There's that word about it. Is I just do splits with cells, and with young queens, I do quite a few splits in the spring, early spring. I do kind of keep track, or I try to keep the best I can track of the queens. I try to mark them if I can. I've started doing that more the last 2 or 3 years, and then I can tell. Many times I can tell if it's a new queen or an old queen. For example, if I marked a queen last year with a red dot, but for the most part, if I have a queen that's got a red dot, I know she's from last year, right? But if I got a queen that doesn't, then there's a good chance it's a newer queen, and so I can go ahead and put a green dot on her for this year. So the bees do a lot of requeening themselves, but I don't actively kill a lot of queens unless they're just not. If it's a really super, they got bad characteristics I don't want, I may do that. But rarely do I just kill a perfectly beautiful queen, even if she's a little bit older. They seem to kind of replace themselves over time. I know that a lot of people, like a lot of commercial guys, replace every queen every year. I just haven't really done that with any kind of regularity. So I don't know if I answered the question or not.
Well, that you did, because everyone's going to have a little different approach based on queen availability. Is that in your budget? Are you making your queens? Can you get a hold of cells? When's the right time to do that? Let's go over to Brian and Eli. Brian, when do you typically requeen?
Oh, man. Last year I played around with requeening more than what I typically had before. And
I'm not laughing at you, laughing with you.
I recall having a conversation sitting out, in those new chairs that you have outside of the new shop, and discussing the columns that were there were days. So,
right.
I normally what I would do is requeen earlier in the season. Last year I attempted, notice I'm saying attempted, to requeen late in the season, but I screwed it up. So that was on me. But prior to last year, I had always done any requeening that I needed earlier in the year. So that's just me.
I think it depends. If someone were to ask me that, we know we've talked about it ad nauseum. I'm not even sure what ad nauseum means or why I even said that. But anyways, if someone were to ask me, I know we've talked about it a lot. Late requeening is a beautiful opportunity for a lot of reasons. However, it is not the same as requeening earlier in the year. When you requeen on a flow early in the year, I mean, you can do no wrong. It's a lot. It's easy, but you also sacrifice a lot of overall potential. If you're running into queens who may have a tendency of swarming earlier on you, and if you still have some treating to do in your colony with products that may or may not be harmful for the colony or the queens, requeening too earlier in the year, you've just spent $40 on the queen, you pull your honey crop, you treat, and if something does happen to that queen for whatever reason, now you're looking at potentially having to put potentially another queen in there. Now, hopefully that never happens to you. What I like to do is let these colonies build up to where they nearly are swarming on these flows. And if I need to thin them down, pull some brood out, checkerboard some foundation in just to hold them tight, in my mind, it makes more sense to, if you can, capture that honey flow, manage that swarm tendency, move material out, bring some fresh in to give them some space, capture the honey flow when you can, and then do your washes, find out if it's time to treat, and if it is, go ahead and treat. Now, you've already captured, financially, you've already captured the flow, so you have your income there. You're going to put your treatment on to make sure that your colony is staying healthy so it continues to be an asset. And if there is an issue and you smoke a queen, or she just barely got through the flow and she's starting to get spotty, it may be time to requeen, you're not going to sacrifice your yield. You're not going to sacrifice them swarming too soon. You can requeen later in the year. However, when you requeen later in the year, you've got to be on point. The main thing is you've got to make sure that they are fed up at least about a week prior to queening, during queening, and after. And that's where bucket feeders really shine, because you can trickle feed ahead, you can trickle feed while you're requeening, and you can trickle feed afterwards. For me, bucket feeding and trickle feeding is something that we've done for a very long time. And because of that, it lends a lot of opportunities to stimulate brood rearing, but also keep a hive that could otherwise be a little cantankerous, it just evens that out some, smooths that out. When you get into July and August and September and you need to requeen during a dearth, boy, you have got some serious challenges ahead of you. But if you can smooth out those edges with feed, it really makes all the difference in the world. So we're going to talk a lot more about this as the season unfolds. Don't be afraid to requeen late in the year, but just know it's going to require a little bit more work. However, there's a huge payoff, because you're going to have a queen that's going to go into the wintertime way fresher than a May or a June queen. She's going to winter really well. When she comes out the following spring, as they build up, what we typically find, like what we're finding right now, and every other colony except for that early queen that's already swarmed on us, no one's ready to swarm. They're building up, they're putting on a honey crop, but they're not in that mode of swarming yet. For me, that's a big deal. So when you can couple capturing your early crop first to cash flow, great. Put the treatment on, and as a backup plan, if you smoke a queen or hurt a colony, you're going to go ahead and requeen anyways. Now you're requeening, and the following year, that hive is really, truly an asset. We're going to talk a lot more about that. We'll get into it, but just know that what works for Bruce and Brian and me, there's going to be a lot of nuance surrounding that. And I think we're going to unpack a lot of that as the season unfolds, so you guys can make a good choice. What is right for you? Just because it works for me or Bruce or Brian doesn't mean it may be a good fit for you. I want to thank Carol McCarthy Logsden. She says, grateful for this community and all the great advice. Thanks for all you do. Carol, thank you for that $20 super chat. Guys, let's go ahead and wrap it up. We're almost at 2 hours. We're already in 30-minute overtime. No matter what we do, we just keep, it's hard not to just get in there, but we can get lost in the weeds going any longer. Bruce, what's coming up for you and Bruce's Bees this next week?
Well, I'm going to try to go in maybe Friday and Saturday and just check on those cells that I put in the colonies and the splits and these splits. I'm a little nervous about it to see if I've got queens. I'm either going to do that this week or next weekend. That will be Saturday, will be 3 weekends ago when I put those queens in there, made those splits and dropped the queens in. So it's about time to put up or shut up. Briefly, though, I'd like to say that I had really actually quite good success with those early cells I placed, but I waited honestly 4 weeks to check back They were such early splits with the cells, and I'm not sure, and I really don't care if it was the queens from the cells or queens that the bees made themselves. Either way, I've got some really nice queens now laying them up, and the video that's going to drop here in the next 2 or 3 days is going to show that in one of my bee yards, kind of what happened there. I would like for folks, if you get a chance, to just a little selfless or a little plug here. Yappy and I had an interview a few days ago. The video dropped yesterday. It's on the channel. I think you'll enjoy it. You know, I kind of tried to talk to him about who Yappy is as a person, as a beekeeper, and some of his things he's doing. You know, Yappy's a real personality. He has a lot of fun with his videos. He's got videos that have, I think, 34 million views. Very successful in that respect, but he's also a very solid person and a very solid beekeeper. And we talked pretty serious about some things and just kind of who is Yappy. So I think you'll enjoy watching that video if you go check it out. It's on my channel. I uploaded yesterday. And then the next video coming out is going to be actually, I think I just mentioned the one where I went through and checked those cells. And the theme of the video is sometimes it just pays to be patient, because I was patient and I had better success. Had I gone ahead at the 2 or 3 week mark and combined colonies or panicked, I would not have had near the results. I wouldn't have as many colonies right now because I would have messed some things up. So I just want you to watch the next video that drops. I hope I can have a good thumbnail and title where people will watch, because I think there's a really important concept that you're going to get out of it, hopefully. And then I did a video that I've been talking about for a while. I haven't even began to edit it yet, but I went out a few days ago and I spent a pretty good amount of time at a bee yard trying to get across and share how I shoot my videos. So if there's anyone interested in that video should be coming down the pike pretty soon. I didn't know how to do it, but hopefully it'll turn out to be, maybe there'll be a tip or two that may help you if you're trying to shoot videos, whether it be beekeeping, any other type of project you may do, or really anything you do, any type of videography where you're trying to shoot the video for yourself. I just kind of thought I'd do a video and show you how I do that. It's been in my mind for a long time, and I've had several people ask questions about it, and I've mentioned it before, and finally I shot the footage, so now we'll see if I can get it put together and it can make sense. But that's pretty much what's coming up the next few weeks. And then, of course, with the big flow we've got going now, one of the bigger spring flows we've had in a while, we're going to be harvesting honey here before too long. And so it'll probably be, hopefully early to mid-May, we'll be harvesting our first honey harvest for the year. So we are busy. Like I asked Yappy the other night, I said, Yappy, so you're busy, hon? He said, a little bit. And that's exactly how I feel. It's real busy, but it's a super fun time of the year to be a beekeeper and to be involved with this community right here in this part of the country.
Brian, what's up with Brian Coper and Castle High the coming week?
Gosh, busy. I got to scoot over tomorrow and just check on those packages. I put them in one of my resource hives, so one of the double nuke setups. And my whole purpose for that is I'm going to use that just to supplement into my other colonies this year. Help, the production ones that I have. If one's needs a little bit of a boost, I can easily just yank out a frame of brood and here you go. So it'll be nice having that, plus having the buffer with the extra queens. So I've got to check that tomorrow. I'm going out to the Trumbull County Beekeepers tomorrow night. They have me speaking for part of their meeting, so that'll be fun.
Oh, cool. Nice.
Yeah, I enjoy that group. And then after that, I've got 2 videos edited. I've got a lot of stuff happening, and it seems like the videos are just going to pile up. So I need to start trickling those out, or else I'm just going to get so behind. And I think that's it. I just, in the next week, it's going to be make sure everything is set up so that when I do my splits, it's not, oh crap, I need to go to the store and get anything. I plan on stacking everything so that it's basically, I'm just going to pick up the bottom board and carry that with the box out. I want to have literally everything set up and ready in the next few days. So you never know what's going to happen. I just want to make sure that I'm prepped and ready. So there's 5 colonies that I'll have to split here soon. So It'll be interesting.
Greg, before you close it out, can I just say I really like these videos you're doing where you're just in the bee yard picking up the boxes with the cell phone. I like those live raw footage. I like those, man. I think you're one of the best videographers in the business, and love those videos too, but it's impossible to make the kind of enough content, or as much as you probably want to make. And I just really like you explaining what you're doing in the hives. I think it's going to be real beneficial, and I really have enjoyed those couple of videos you put out.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys saying that. It's you guys know it's hard to sometimes just let things go and just do the best you can to get something out. One thing that we just keep hearing over and over and over again is, we know you guys are busy. We would love to see more videos from the yard. We would love to see more videos of you and Susie just talking about stuff. So we're, right now, we're in the thick of it. We're trying to balance out the supply business with the business of bees themselves, raise 7 kids here on the farm, and all the things that life has with that. And we are so grateful and thankful and blessed that this is where God has put us, that this is where our journey is. But truth be told, at times it's overwhelming. At times it's a lot. At times you just are trying to literally put one foot in front of the other. And sometimes you feel like you're dragging down and you're grabbing your own boot and you're just pushing the one foot out in front of the other. So I really appreciate you guys, taking the time to watch the videos, even if they aren't the bugs in the box or all the videos that we're kind of known for. We really appreciate you guys. When we're in this grind and in this hustle of everything, one of my favorite quotes, I got to shout out retired Army veteran Steve Riley from the Fairfield County Beekeepers Association. It was absolutely an honor for us to sit in on that club meeting where Steve kind of shared his first year in beekeeping. We were blessed with the opportunity to be able to give the bees and the equipment to some veteran scholarships through the Fairfield County Beekeepers Association. So it was really cool last night to sit in and see Steve's presentation of what his first year looked like. And he did a tremendous job. But one of the quotes that I absolutely just adore that he threw out there, I want to read that. That nothing in the world is worth having or worth doing unless it means effort, pain, and difficulty. That's Teddy Roosevelt. It goes on and on and on, but what a beautiful thing to think about. Whether it's beekeeping, your business, your family, life, remember, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it. The things that are worth the pain and the difficulty and it being hard, those are the things that are worth doing, the things that are worth having, and the things that are worth passing down to the next generation. So I really appreciate that sentiment. Steve did a great job. Coming up here this next week, we're prepping. We've got our third package run is coming up. I can't thank everybody enough for all of their support. There's only a few packages even left on that route. And if demand needs be, maybe we'll do a fourth package run this year. We've got nukes that are going to be available around June the 1st. We have availability on those. We haven't even really tried to market or sell those. They're selling themselves. But those will be bees that are from our own stock, that will have queens from our own genetic line, the Appalachian mutts. Folks, I think you'll love them. I think it's a great opportunity to bring those genetics into your apiary, not just for the joy of beekeeping, but the joy of bee breeding. And this year, what we're trying to really do is trying to do our best in bringing folks along with us as we kind of journey through what does bee breeding mean on this scale. What are we doing when we're grafting, when we're making the splits, when we're doing all these things? I know coming up and some upcoming videos, I think what we're going to do, even if it's just quick iPhone stuff, I'm going to take you along on this swarm that we just talked about tonight that I'm setting up to be a cell starter. I'll take you along. We'll show you what I'm looking at, what I'm seeing, what I'm thinking. We'll take you along. There's some really fun stuff that we'll be using as we graft. I think you guys will find some value in a really cool stuff. We've got a really is artificial insemination for you? Believe it or not, you might be surprised. It's not that far-fetched. It's definitely attainable. I've got a really fun video to release here in the near future where we get into that with Dale McMahon at Apis Engineering and kind of go over some of those things. What a fun journey and a fun opportunity. Instrumental insemination, artificial insemination, but taking the genetics into your own hands. Wow. Talk about fast-tracking decades of open mating possibilities and put it right there in front of you. I'm really excited to share about that. I'm really excited about a video. Believe it or not, I'm not the guy that does the cutouts or catches the swarms, but they're still fun. And I've got a really fun video, probably the easiest swarm catch ever. You got to check it out. It's really cool. That one's coming up soon too. A lot of fun stuff. We're going to do our best, try to get a lot more footage out. I also, on the podcast, if you check out our podcast on the audio format, our RSS feed, something happened. We're behind again. So I'm going to get all of that audio caught back up. So if you like to binge on audio podcasts while you're driving, the Nature's Image Farm podcast is going to have a bunch of stuff. You're going to start seeing, hitting your iPhone and telling you new podcast, new podcast, new podcast. So we enjoy you to be able to do that. Hope you guys are having fun with this too. Hey, I just want to thank Bruce and Brian, all the folks that are on here. You guys are family. We see you every single week. We love you guys. We appreciate you. Thanks for spending your evenings with us. It means everything. Next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, will be on, is it Brian's channel? See, that was a good guess. I had a 50-50. I knew it wasn't mine. It was either Bruce or Brian. So, okay, Brian. Next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, stream Team Beekeeping Chat live on the Castle Hives YouTube channel. Again, thank you guys. You guys are awesome. As always, I want to remind you to be the lighthouse and be the change you want to see in this world. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.